Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Good morning. Today we are continuing to cook for the Junior Iditarod, and this morning I'm going to make Snickerdoodles. Snickerdoodles is an old-fashioned molded cookie, and the recipe that I use is a recipe from an old Betty Crocker cookbook that I received in probably 1976. It's a paperback that's falling apart, and I keep it as well as I can because, of course, it's no longer available. So, Snickerdoodles are a molded cookie. The trick to Snickerdoodles, or not really the trick, but the secret that makes them special, besides you make them with love, is cream of tartar. So we will add some cream of tartar later. It's a leavening, and it's what gives Snickerdoodles that special flavor that is hard to pinpoint for most people. So I always make a double recipe. I don't know that there's ever been a time where I've made a single recipe of cookies since we moved to EagleSong. There's always plenty of people to cook for. And for Junior, I need a lot of cookies. So I have 2 cups of butter, 4 eggs, and 3 cups of sugar. And I'm going to beat this. So now we're going to add the powder ingredients. The powder ingredients are, this is a doubled recipe, so it's 3 cups of flour, 4 teaspoons cream of tartar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and ½ teaspoon of salt. So this is in this sifter. I always think about how many dishes I have to wash. So if I can sift something into the bowl I'm using, then all the better. One less bowl, another reason why I have such a large sifter. Another thing, when I do a recipe, I'm just going to mix this up by hand now. Doesn't need to be beaten. You can if you want. I have just a small mixer. Doesn't have a lot of power, so I prefer to do this by hand. But when I do a recipe, I always make sure that I have all the ingredients. And like for cookies like this, I lay out all the ingredients so that I have them to hand. They're easy to grab. Also ensures that you have those ingredients. It's not fun to get halfway through a recipe and realize that you need an ingredient that you don't have and you can't substitute. There's lots of things you can substitute, but some things you just can't. So, this is a molded cookie, like I said. We're going to mix this up, and then these are going to be made into little balls. Those balls are going to be rolled into a cinnamon sugar mixture. The cinnamon sugar mixture is 2 tablespoons of sugar to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. That's a lot of cinnamon to that small of a mixture of sugar, but it's what gives the Snickerdoodles that cinnamon coating that makes them special. So that's about all I can do with that. Again, if you haven't seen one of my other videos, I cut my thumb the other day, and it's making it difficult for me to bandage or keep clean, so I'm wearing a glove on that hand to protect it and make it easier to clean. So I have already mixed my cinnamon mixture, which is right there. Because this cookie has a goodly amount of shortening, or butter, and butter for me, you don't need to grease the pan. My oven is preheating right now to 400. I've been baking and making cookies for most of my life. So let's say at least 50 years. One year I made Snickerdoodles for the race, and somebody, I don't have any idea who it was, some person was here and they were eating cookies and they saw the Snickerdoodles and they asked if I made them myself, and I said yes. And they said that they didn't believe me because all of the cookies were exactly the same size. And I didn't take offense. I understand that most cookies are store-bought. And I just explained to them that I've been making cookies for enough years that my hands can pretty much do things exactly the same sizes. And the only real reason when you're doing a drop cookie to make things the same sizes is so that when you're baking it in the oven, they're baking evenly. If you have a Snickerdoodle ball that you've rolled that's 2 inches, sitting next to one that's 1 inch, and you're trying to cook them at the same time on the same cookie sheet, something's going to be overdone or something's going to be underdone. So you don't need to be anal about it, but you try to make the cookies the same size. You can, if it makes it easier to start out, use a little scoop or a teaspoon or whatever it is so that you can get things the same size, or at least until your brains and your hand register what that means. Oh, there's my oven beeping saying that it's preheated, so we're good to go when we're ready. And this is almost ready. Alright, so I don't have any crumbles. It's a good dough. So, get my cookie sheet. See if I can do this so that you can see. So I know my cookie sheet I can do 4 across, or 4 this way and 3 across. So I'm going to pinch off a little bit of dough. Put it in the cinnamon sugar. Some cookies, when this is a molded cookie, as I said before, and some cookies when you're molding them like this and you're rolling them into balls, you'll need to compress the cookie. Use your thumb, use your fingers, use a press. There's cookie presses with little designs, but Snickerdoodles don't require that. They melt and cook perfectly to make that little mound that you want, just as they are. Alright, so there's the first few. Hopefully you can see that. I have another 5 to make for this cookie sheet. I'll do the other one. I'll put them in the oven at the same time. When I put cookies in the oven, I'm always making so many that I'm always going to use 2 sheets. I'm always going to use 2 shelves. So whenever I do that, I put them in at the same time so that halfway through the baking, I can pull out the cookie sheet, switch to the shelf, and rotate the pans 180 degrees. That way it ensures that things are cooked evenly and one side's not browner than others. Some ovens are less temperamental than others, but it's just a safety thing that I do, and I know that's the way it works best for my oven. I'll set this one aside. Obviously, a molded cookie takes a little bit more time than, let's say, a bar cookie. But when you see someone come into the house and they see the cookies on the counter and they look at them and say, or wait until they taste them and say, "Is this a Snickerdoodle?" And they remember their childhood, at least the people my age, it's well worth it. The reason I bake, the reason I cook is because I love people and I love good food. And I don't think it's too much to ask to always eat good food, and I don't think it's too much to require of me to say I feed people with love and good food. And like all things, cooking, you can adjust things as you like. Cinnamon sugar is the classic for Snickerdoodles. And for somebody who knows Snickerdoodles, you wouldn't want to serve them anything else. But you could put nutmeg in the cinnamon sugar. Alright, so we have enough cookie balls. Obviously, since it's not a grease sheet, you need to be careful as you move things around. I have a feeling these cookies may be a little big, but we'll find out when we pull them out of the oven. So I'm going to put these in the oven. The recipe calls for 12 minutes. I'm going to put my timer at 6 minutes and turn them and rotate them on the racks. So we'll come back after they're done baking and see how they look. Getting ready to take the Snickerdoodles out of the oven, the first batch. So I'm going to grab those. I'm going to put another batch in the oven. I was rolling those while these were cooking. Okay, so here's the first batch of Snickerdoodles out of the oven. They don't take an indentation when I'm touching the top, which means they're done. I can tell by the bottom they're brown. You don't want to cook them too much, obviously. They have a lot of butter. You don't want to burn them. So generally with drop cookies, you're going to let them sit out of after they come out of the oven for maybe 2 to 3 minutes before you take them off the pan. Gives it just a few minutes to cool. Makes it easier to take them off the pan. If you let them sit completely and cool on the pan, they will usually adhere to the pan. So we're just going to let them set for a couple of minutes. We'll take them off the pan, put them on the cookie sheet or the cookie grid, and we'll let them cool completely before we eat them. A lot of cookies are really good right out of the oven, nice and warm. Snickerdoodles, I have found, need a little bit more time for the flavors to meld. So I really do like to let them cool all the way before eating. Later on, I'm going to make some chocolate chip cookies, and anybody that's been around knows that chocolate chip cookies warm out of the oven are awesome. Snickerdoodles need a little time to cool. So I'm going to put these on the grid. We'll move the grid out of the way. And probably by the time the two men I have with me today, my husband Mike and our friend Ben, are ready to come in for a break, the cookies will be cool enough to taste test. It's always good to be the taste testers. So I'm just going to keep rolling and molding the cookies, rolling them in the cinnamon sugar and baking them as such. And those are Snickerdoodles. Your family will appreciate it. Any of your friends will appreciate it. Once they're completely cool, they can freeze. They can be wrapped in plastic. If you're going to, they're fairly tender cookies, so if you're going to put them in more than one layer, you want to put separation between the layers and a little bit of padding. I usually just put them on a cookie sheet single, make sure they're really cool first before I do that, and then wrap that in plastic wrap or any kind of covered wrap. It could be Tupperware container, and I freeze them because they're not going to be eaten, except for my taste testers, until this weekend. So I hope you enjoy Snickerdoodles. So here's the Snickerdoodles all finished, and I think I have a taste tester coming in, so let's see how that goes.
What are you doing?
I'm making Snickerdoodles.
It smells good in here.
You want to taste one?
Ooh.
They've been cooling for a little bit, so you can have one. Acceptable?
I don't really like Snickerdoodles. These are pretty good.
What you been doing?
Laying in a runway on the lake.
Doing what?
laying in a runway on the lake.
Laying in a runway on the lake. Okay.
Yeah.
You're covered with snow.
Yeah. It's deep. It was good. I want to take one with me.
Okay.
Just for good measure.